Yella Beezy, inside the Mo3 murder for hire case. In a Dallas courtroom this month, the pretrial hearings are underway in one of the most closely watched cases in hip-hop. A platinum-selling rapper stands accused of capital murder, accused, prosecutors say, of paying to have another rapper killed. In a matter of weeks, a jury will be asked to decide if that's true. Tonight, we walk through exactly what the state alleges, what the documented evidence actually is, and, just as importantly, what has not been proven. Because being charged with a crime is not the same as being guilty of one, and this case has not yet been tried. Before this became a court case, it was a killing. Melvin Noble, the Dallas rapper known as Mo3, was 28 years old. He was a rising voice out of South Dallas with a real following, an artist a lot of people expected to break through nationally. On November 11, 2020, that ended on a highway in broad daylight. Whatever a jury ultimately decides about who is responsible, a young man was killed, and that fact sits underneath everything that follows. According to authorities and reporting from Dallas outlets, this is what happened that afternoon. Mo3 was driving on Interstate 35E when a masked gunman got out and chased him down on foot, opening fire in the middle of daytime traffic. Mo3 was struck multiple times and later died at a hospital. A bystander in another vehicle was also hit and survived. It was a brazen public shooting, the kind that draws immediate, intense attention from investigators, and the kind the city does not forget. To understand the state's theory, you have to understand the history and its documented public history. Yella Beezy and Mo3 came out of the same Dallas scene, and over the years, what looked like competition hardened into a well-known public feud between their camps. There's another piece of that backdrop. In 2018, Yella Beezy himself survived being shot multiple times in Dallas. But here's the careful part, and it matters. A documented rivalry is not a motive proven in court. The state may argue that history explains a why, but arguing a motive and proving one are two very different things, and a feud by itself is not evidence that anyone ordered a killing. For a long time, there was no charge. The case stayed open, and the rumors, as they always do in a story like this, ran far ahead of the facts. Then, in March of 2025, nearly 5 years after the shooting, Dallas authorities arrested the rapper Yella Beezy, whose legal name is Marquise Conway, and charged him with capital murder in connection with Mo3's death. That arrest turned years of online speculation into something concrete, a formal accusation that now has to be proven in court in front of a jury under the rules of evidence. Here is a precise accusation, and the wording matters. Prosecutors allege that Yella Beezy did not pull the trigger himself. They allege he hired someone to do it. The state has accused a second man, Q White, of being the gunman. In other words, the theory of the case is murder for hire, that Beezy paid to have Mo3 killed. That is what the indictment claims. It is an allegation the state must prove beyond a reasonable doubt, and at this stage, against both men, it remains exactly that, an allegation, not a finding. It's worth understanding what the state has actually taken on, because a murder for hire case is, in some ways, harder to prove than a case against the person who pulled the trigger. Prosecutors aren't alleging Yella Beezy was at the scene, they're alleging he arranged it and paid for it. That means they have to prove the arrangement itself, an agreement, a payment, and a real connection between the person accused of ordering the killing and the person accused of carrying it out. That's a chain, and every link has to hold. It's exactly the kind of case that can look airtight in a headline and get complicated in a courtroom. So what's behind the allegation? Based on reporting, prosecutors point to financial records, including a roughly $40,000 cash withdrawal said to have been made in the days after the killing, which the state frames as consistent with the payment. Be careful here. A cash withdrawal on its own is not proof of a murder for hire, and the defense will fight hard over what it actually means. What the state is doing is building a circumstantial picture piece by piece. Whether that picture adds up to proof beyond a reasonable doubt is the entire question the trial exists to answer. There's one part of this case that reaches beyond the usual. According to reporting, prosecutors intend to use Yella Beezy's own music and lyrics as evidence against him. This is a genuinely contested tactic in American courtrooms. Supporters argue lyrics can show intent or knowledge. Critics, including many artists and civil liberties advocates, argue that rap lyrics are art and performance, not confession, and that using them risks putting a whole genre on trial instead of the actual evidence. However this judge and jury handle it is one of the most important dynamics to watch in the entire case. And that fight is bigger than this one case. Across the country, prosecutors have increasingly tried to put defendants' rap lyrics in front of juries, and it's become one of the most debated issues in American criminal law. It loomed over the Young Thug and YSL case in Georgia, and has pushed several states to consider limits on when lyrics can be used at all. Critics warn it's uniquely risky that a jury may hear violent lyrics and start convicting a defendant for who he appears to be, instead of for what the evidence actually proves. How Yella Beezy's music is handled could become one of the most consequential rulings of this trial and a marker for cases far beyond it. The charge itself raises the stakes as high as they go. In Texas, capital murder, which includes a killing carried out for payment, the very definition of murder for hire, is one of the few crimes that can carry the death penalty. Prosecutors have the option to seek that or to seek life in prison without the possibility of parole. That's why every ruling here, every piece of evidence, every hearing this month carries so much weight. When the ceiling on a case is a death sentence, the margin for error on every side of the courtroom is supposed to be zero. And there is another side of the table. as there always is, and as there is supposed to be. Yella Beezy faces this case as a defendant with the presumption of innocence. He is currently free on bond, reported at $750,000, reduced from an earlier $2 million, living under house arrest with an ankle monitor as the case proceeds. He has not been convicted of anything. His defense will get to challenge the state's evidence, cross-examine its witnesses, and offer its own account. That is not a loophole. That is the system working exactly the way it is meant to. This is the line worth holding on to through everything that comes next. An arrest is not a verdict. An indictment is not proof. Prosecutors presenting a theory is not the same as a jury accepting it. In a case this loud with this much history and this much online noise, it is easy to slide from accused to guilty in your own head before a single witness is testified. That slide is exactly how wrong conclusions get made, and it's exactly what a trial is designed to prevent. The state has to prove its case. Until it does, in a courtroom, the accusation is unproven. So here's the current status. The trial was originally set for early 2026, but was delayed, reportedly after a death in Yella Beezy's family, and a judge ordered a new date. Pre-trial hearings are taking place this month in July, and the capital murder trial itself is now scheduled to begin on August 24, 2026 in Dallas. Because this is charged as capital murder under Texas law, a conviction could mean life in prison without parole or the death penalty. Those are the stakes, but that word could is doing a lot of work because none of it is decided yet. For all the coverage, notice how much is still genuinely open. No jury has heard the full evidence. The defense's case has not been presented. The meaning of the state's financial records, the lyrics question, the credibility of witnesses, all of that gets tested in a courtroom, not in a comment section. And there are people at the center of this who are not headlines. A family that lost Mo3 and wants accountability, and a defendant who says the state has it wrong. Both of those things can be true at the same time, and only a fair trial can sort out which way it goes. Step back, and this sits at the crossroads of things bigger than two artists. It's about whether the system can fairly try a case that lived online for years before it ever reached the courtroom. It's about the lyrics as evidence fight that could shape how artists are prosecuted for a generation. And it's about a real family still waiting for accountability for a son and a brother. None of those threads resolve in a headline or a hot take. They resolve if they resolve it all in a Dallas courtroom this fall, which is exactly why it's worth following honestly. Where it stands tonight, Yella Beezy is charged with capital murder in the 2020 killing of Mo3, accused by prosecutors of a murder for hire that he denies. He is out on bond, under house arrest, and his trial is set for late August. The state points to financial records and intends to use his music as evidence. The defense will contest all of it. We've walked only what's on the record and stayed clear about the line between what's alleged and what's proven. This story will move fast once the trial begins, and when it does, we'll bring you the update with the same discipline. A man was killed, another stands accused, and a jury, not a comment section, decides what happens next. Thank you for watching Crimetown TV. If this story mattered to you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe and turn on notifications. We'll keep this updated as the facts come in.